So we are moving through SQ3R. We have done our survey. We have done our questions. We have done our reading. Next up, we need to retrieve the information. So this is where we're going back to study. And when we're studying, we don't go back to the reading material. We can read the same textbook 6 times. If we're doing passive reading instead of active, it's not going to be much different from reading it once. But the key here, we can now generate our questions. We have a list of questions we've asked ourselves. So now when we're studying, we go back to those questions and we retrieve the answers. And we want to go back as well, and we can go back to the source material. If we're a little unsure of the answers, we want to make sure that our question list is complete, and so is our answer list. We can keep going, and we can generate more questions anytime we want. And an incredibly effective way to use SQ3R is to keep generating question after question after question after question after question, and do everything you can to anticipate every type of question that may show up on a test. It sounds silly, but when I was in university, one of my courses had a midterm that was 2 hours long. And that prof was of the opinion that universities were just supposed to sort students and let the cream of the crop come out. So he made it longer than anyone could do. That was his goal. He wanted a test that could not possibly be finished. In 2 hours, 120 minutes, we had 300 multiple choice questions to answer. So, I mean, you can do the math on that. That's, 2.5 questions per minute. So, we have to move very quickly. And some of these were long enough questions that it would take 20 or 30 seconds just to read them. But I had been applying SQ3R as I was studying and figuring out what kind of questions could be showing up and trying to anticipate what the questions might be. And it worked. So in a class of over 200 people, only 3 of us handed in that test before it was actually due. I spoke to the other 2 after the fact. They had just given up and guessed. They were just done. They filled in random bubbles. They were not happy with their answers. So in university, where you're being marked not for your raw score, but for how you do compared to other students in the class. It's really where you are relative to the class average on that bell curve. I was, as far as I could tell, the only student in the class who was actually satisfied with my answers to all 300 questions. I was able to do that because I used SQ3R to generate so many of the questions that actually showed up on the test when I was studying, that when my classmates were looking at it for the first time and going, oh, yeah, what would that be? And going through the thought process under the time limit, I had that question and said, oh yeah, I thought about that already, it's B. And just had to recognize it and move on. So everyone else was doing the analytical part in the test. I had turned them into recall questions. So going back to Bloom's taxonomy, my classmates were working at level 4, and I was doing the test at level 2, which is easier, smoother, far less stressful. So that is one of the big benefits of SQ3R, giving you a rigorous way to generate those test questions, which you can then use to move on over and over and over and help you prepare for the upcoming tests. So that's what we want to use it for. That said, so far we've only covered 2 of the 3 R's. That means it's time for another video.